Chris Speaks here tonight with Kyle Garrison, who's a former seaman who worked in explosives while he was in the Navy. I think he says works with Ordnance now. He is running for State Senate District 6 as a Libertarian against a two-term incumbent. Kyle, how are you, man?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I can't complain. So, Kyle, tell me, man, what made you decide that you want to go to Montgomery and serve in the legislature?
Well, so for the longest time, well, say longest time, but several years at least now, I watch the news, been trying to keep up with especially local politics, state politics, federal level politics, and all the time I'm just shaking my head, getting aggravated and upset with some of the dumb things that the government's doing these days. And all this time I'm like, you know what? Someone needs to go up there and do something about this. And lo and behold, a couple months ago, Libertarian Party reaches out and said, "Hey, how you feel like running for our political office? We've got enough votes. We're Libertarian is going to be an official party on the ballot this year for Alabama, and we want you to do something about that." And I'm like, you know what? This is a sign. Time for me to do something. So here I am.
I'm glad to hear that the Libertarian Party has gained access to the ballot. I'm a firm believer that we do need more parties out there for more voices to be heard. Before I ask you the next question, I just want to ask you. When I'm interviewing people, and I don't mean don't think I'm getting tough with your confrontation or anything like that, but I hear people all the time say the same thing you did. They want to change things. Which is great. So what separates Kyle from the other guys who goes down there? How's Kyle going to go about, getting stuff done?
Well, so I guess you can call it my platform or my slogan per se is I'm running for Senate so I can leave you alone. That's the basis of Libertarian. It's the basis of the Libertarian Party is everything the government touches, they ruin. I mean, you got to think the government bankrupt the only legal prostitution in America, like prostitution house in America back, 20 years ago in Vegas there when, everything they touch, they ruin. So look at the taxes that we're paying these days. Like 30-40% of everybody's paychecks are going to pay to keep America running and keep you safe. Well, my taxpayers
and you're not even counting taxes like property tax, getting a car tax.
Oh man, a car. I bought the car. I paid sales tax on the car. Why am I paying tax every year on that car? I paid taxes when I bought the damn thing. Why are you still paying on it? Yeah. Oh, you're getting me down a rabbit hole.
Why do I have to pay taxes on this land that I've owned? For
right.
And that's really what my next question is going to be into for people who really don't know, or just to hear about, give a synopsis of what the Libertarian Party is about. Well, what do they believe? What are their core principles? I mean, I know we talked about taxes, and we can beat that to death. But feel free if you want to talk about the taxes. But tell me some other things that the Libertarian Party, really is their core values.
So generally, how I view the Libertarian Party in general, because they like to say is our tent's really, really big. We'll take a lot of people in, but we do have standards. But generally speaking, the Republican Party is the middle ground that everybody supposedly talks about on both sides, whether you're right or left, how sometimes we got to meet in the middle and come together on things. Well, the Libertarian Party is that. Generally speaking, we are fiscally conservative, at least conservative from the 80s when Republicans claimed they wanted smaller government. They actually tried for smaller government, but nowadays that doesn't happen. And we are socially liberal. If you want to be gay, be gay. It doesn't hurt my feelings any. I want my gay neighbors to use their AR-15s to protect their pot plants. That's the core of the Libertarian Party. And it's funny because that's a meme. That quote I just used is a meme that's out there. And I tell people, because a lot of, especially I grew up conservative. I was a Republican since the day I could vote. I was a registered Republican. And I tell people, if you see that meme and that doesn't anger you or you agree with it, you shake your head. Yes, congratulations, you're a Libertarian. Because everything about that's what it's about. It's you do you and I do me, And as long as whatever we're doing does not directly affect my life or your life, it should be legal. There's way too many government agencies. There's too many three-letter government agencies on the books. There's too many laws on the books. And I mean, it's too difficult. It's nobody lives their life and not breaks the laws the way the laws are written. Like, you breathe the wrong way and it's against the law somewhere. So that's what Libertarian Party is about, is getting back to just, I think one of the founding fathers, forgive me for not knowing this off the top of my head, but one of the founding fathers, pretty much stated that, freedom is inherently dangerous, and libertarians just want to live dangerously.
I thought that was funny, or not funny, but when you said that about your gay neighbors, I can remember, back God, it's been going on, gay marriage thing. I've always thought, why am I wasting this type of argument? If you want to go get married, I don't care. I mean, if that's not affecting me in the least bit. And I heard, I don't know if you ever listened to Matt Murphy's show. He was essentially a libertarian, and he gave the best answer I've ever heard in my life when it came to gay marriage, back when it was in the forefront. He said, the right-wing conservatives, they want to use religion to pass a law when it is against the Constitution, about establishment of freedom of religion. They're wanting to use that to enforce the law about marriage when it says nothing about it. So here's what should be done. If you want to make it a religious institution, then, because government should have no business in saying who should get married, then if you go to a church and a preacher agrees to marry you, then the government should be forced to acknowledge that marriage. And I thought, man, that is such a great idea. If you want to make it about religion, then make it about religion, because there'll be plenty of preachers out there who would do that.
Absolutely. It's that's a genius thing to think of, because it is. I mean, it's depending on how you get married, it's either legally or religiously, and it's whatever happened to separation of church and state. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Hey, if you want to ruin your life by getting married, by Jesus, you should be able to marry whoever you want to.
Yeah. I said one time too, that was going on. I said, look, if gay people want to be as miserable as straight, go right ahead. Make yourself as miserable. Let me ask you kind of a touchy subject that I'd like to see what the libertarian stance on it is. Because it's going now towards affecting people talking about children. What's their take on the trans issue? I mean, obviously, if somebody wants to be a man or be a woman, I mean, I guess that ultimately that's up to them. But what about when they're living your life as a woman, as a man? I mean, what's their take on that?
So they're not 100%. I'm not 100% sure exactly what the official take on that, on their official stance is on that. But generally speaking, like I said, it's if you want to live your life, live the life you want to live. And that's generally how I take it as an adult. If you want to live your life, do what you want to do, have the surgeries, take the medications, whatever it is you want to do, that's okay. Again, you taking medications and you claiming your name is Nancy now has no relevant effect on my life. So why should I care? Now, children, on the other hand,
they should make it where that we shouldn't be allowing 12 or 13-year-old kids. That it should be something once you get 18.
Yes, absolutely. I was just about to touch on that.
I'm sorry.
Generally, the way the laws work and how the mentality, especially the Libertarian Party, children are minors. Children don't have the ability to stand up for themselves, generally, legally speaking. So adults must protect children. So for me, that is some gray area. I have a 2-year-old son.
Right.
He wears mommy shoes all the time just because they're shoes. He puts them on, he walks around, he does it with me too. But just because my son walks around wearing my wife's shoes doesn't mean he thinks he's a girl. He wants to be a girl. Right. And we're seeing a lot of that today, where small children say something or think something, and the parents just run with that. And we have to be careful, because a lot of times kids are just going to grow out of what they think they're doing. I thought I was Superman when I was a kid. Obviously, I'm too fat and old and can't fly, so I'm not Superman. I mean, that's just how it works. So we do have to be careful of that.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, when I was a little boy, my mother, she would, and my hair texture's changed now. But I had long curly blonde hair, and she used to grow it out real long and put curlers in it and then put me in one of her nightgowns just drive my father crazy. And I didn't turn out as a transsexual. And while I'd like to touch on something, former gubernatorial candidate Tim James made an absolute fool out of himself with. I'm sure you've seen the commercial where he said, "Now we got a transgender school in Alabama." Well,
Oh yeah, I saw
of course, on the journalistic side, I look it up. I call the school. I talked to the principal for 45 minutes. Hey, is this a gay trans? Nowhere in there does he said in the charter, he said there's a thing that says they're accepting of LGBT. How many? Sorry, no, I hope I don't offend them. But how many ever letters is in it now? It changes, but that he was there was accepting of those children, and that it was more of a school that was for kids who did not fit in, which I'm sure we all went to school with kids who didn't fit in. Did they have transgender kids there? I don't know, but it was not a school for transgender kids. The drag show that Mr. James talks about was, yes, it was a turnabout show where men dressed up like women and women dressed up like men to pay for a scholars history bowl trip to DC. Now, when I was in school, we had women's beauty contests where the male teachers dressed up like women for fundraisers. What's the difference? I don't,
Yeah. I mean, I remember the male teachers doing things like that. When I was and nobody ever thought it was transsexual, transgender, none of that stuff. It was just a funny, cutesy way to earn money. As long as the adults and the teachers are voluntarily doing that stuff. But you are seeing nowadays that there's these children, or minors, small children, 7, 8, 9-year-old boys who claim or want to be women, or think or say they are women, and that now their parents are allowing them to do like drag show, striptease, beauty pageants. I mean, Netflix had a TV show about it. I mean, that stuff is above and beyond. Like, that's just the fact that somebody thought that was a good idea to begin with just blows my mind. It tells us just where society's gone wrong in this country.
I've definitely got to draw a line on that. Boys are going to. I think boys should be raised not to be, doing that, because what was that? I was fixing to go with something about that. He said, when I don't know where all these terms come up with, non-binary, gender fluid. They've got something every day. Somebody told me one time in a Facebook chat, he goes, "Well, you're a cis man." Well, I thought I was being insulted, and I said, "What do you mean I'm a cis man?" He goes, "You identify with the gender you were born with." I said, "I did not need a term to tell me that."
Right? Yeah. For a generation of people who don't like labels, they sure do spend a lot of time labeling everything.
Yeah, and see, I refuse to go along with that. I'm not going to say them, they, that, or whatever. I'm going to say him, she, and so be it. If this, because, and so I don't mean to get off track here, but it's like the society is surrendered to 98% of the 98% of the population is surrendered to 2%. And
absolutely.
Eventually enough's got to be enough. You mentioned marijuana a while ago. I've had countless interviews with people regarding marijuana. Some people say, "Oh, absolutely not, it shouldn't be legal." I heard one of those stupidest answers I've ever heard in my life was, he is a candidate right now for statewide office. I will not call out his name, but he made the statement. I says, "Do you support legalizing marijuana and taxing it?" And he said, "I'm against legalizing anything we have to tax." And I said, "Huh?" I said, "So you would rather spend all this money in incarcerating people, police hours that we're burning, the court system on marijuana charges, instead of just even giving them a $25 ticket and say go home, or just outright legalizing it and taxing it?" I mean, $20 a pack of joints with a $20 pack tax on it, I could find just about anything you wanted to find.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm 100% with you on that one. Marijuana, cannabis, either medical or recreational, it should be legal. And yeah, absolutely. It's a voluntary, sales tax is a voluntary tax, because, nobody's forcing anybody to purchase the marijuana. So if you make a contract on yourself with the dealer and you buy it legally, tax it. Absolutely. And because look at the states who have done it, they are actually bringing in a net surplus of tax income due to marijuana sales.
Billions, Colorado,
Billions of dollars.
It's
It's amazing.
and you know their head of their drug enforcement agents wrote that bill.
See, yeah, exactly. I mean, the war on drugs is the biggest scam this country, one of the largest scams this country has ever accomplished. Because
I mean,
it was a horrible war. Drugs won. Drugs have won that war.
I don't know if it was, I can't remember what kind it was, if it was what drug it was, but my father hung a federal jury in a drug trafficking case. They charged this man with trafficking drugs, and he had 3 people testify against him. And I don't know, after 11 days of deliberations, the judge finally declared a mistrial. And I think my dad ended up having one other person to switch, but the vote was 10-2. And I said, well, what was the reason? And he said, they charged that guy with trafficking. He said, the other 3 said he did it. He said they did it. I don't know who was lying, so I voted not guilty. And I said, good for you.
That's how it's supposed to work. Guilty.
And I'd like to ask you something else too concerning drugs. I believe that our drug system is so draconian that we have people sending them to jail or giving them a felony for the rest of their life, because so what if they're caught with a simple amount of heroin or meth? Obviously, it's a drug that I'm by no means am I advocating people take or promoting it, but I don't think somebody's life should be ruined over one indiscretion.
Yes, I do agree with you that. Like I said, the way I see what drugs we should legalize, which drugs we shouldn't, is based on if you're on that drug, what potential damage or harm can you do to other people? Generally speaking, people high on weed, they want they want snacks and food, and they sit back and relax and come up with crazy ideas. People on meth tend to not be in the right state of mind. They're the ones who can do damage to people, rob. A lot of crimes are committed while people either on meth or trying to get money to get their next fix on some of the harder drugs. Because of that, those drugs should still be illegal. But just as you said, if you are caught with a small amount, if you are someone who is addicted to a drug and you are caught with drugs, or you're having an episode because you're high on drugs, yes, they're becoming a felon for the rest of your life. Even though you come clean, your life is still ruined, or essentially much more difficult than it should be. So yeah, absolutely. There needs to be prison reform and drug reform in this country, to where if you do get help and you do get clean, you should be able to have a true and honest second chance at life, and being a second chance at becoming a decent member of society.
Agree totally. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was not advocating legalizing it by no means. I think like you said, it should be illegal. But for us to, and say somebody gets caught with simple possession 2 or 3 times, and I'm not talking about a dealer. I mean, to throw somebody in prison for 5 or 6 years, you're just creating a revolving door that this person's never going to get out of. Why don't we send this person to some type of rehabilitation facility? I think you're going to have a lot better chance of producing a member of society than you are throwing them in with some hardened criminals. I've often thought that there should be no prison time for nonviolent offenders, and that would fall up under it. I mean, you're paying what, $40,000 a year for this?
Absolutely,
take care of that person.
And a lot of these first time offenders and the low level offenders, you should say, a lot of them, when they do go to prison, they're learning how to become better criminals from the hardened criminals who've been there for decades. Exactly. So we're just creating a better quality criminal, which is completely asinine to me.
And there's a lot of things I do not agree with Senator Sanders on, but his idea of that we've turned the judicial system into a thing of profit. When you go get a bail bondsman, your defense attorney, I got arrested one time for a simple possession of marijuana, a dime bag of pot. And they had probably, 10 cars surround me and, take me in, and they sit me down, and they have the chief narcotics officer talking to me, and he starts playing a tape recorder. I was like, "Oh, turn that off." And so he says, "We know who you got it from." And I said, "Well, you tell me then." So he names the guy, he names the amount, names everything. I said, "What do you need me for?" And he goes, "I need you to make 3 buys from him." And I just started laughing. So, of course, I get a lawyer, and we go to court, and we kick it up to district court. And then finally, after like 3 days of hearings, my lawyer comes out and said, "Will you agree to plead guilty to disorderly conduct if they drop the possession charge?" I had to plead guilty to disorderly conduct, but if I hadn't agreed with that, it goes for a judge. Judge might have ruled that the weed was still admissible. Then I ain't got nothing. So I took the deal. The fine was $200. Court cost was almost $1,000 for me to come in there and spend 5 minutes as my lawyers arguing. I mean, that was just ridiculous.
Absolutely. And it just tells the society that if you're poor, you're going to stay a criminal, because if you can't afford that, then you're going to get the harsher penalties. But if you can afford to pay off these fines and fees, then you can just keep doing whatever you're doing. It's almost like, fines say that everything is legal for a price, and that's not what our society should be about.
Well, case in point with that, the man who went in front of me, he had $1,000 fine. Both of us had $1,200 fines. He was allowed to pay it off at $25 a month, whereas mine was $200 a month because I had a better job, made more money. And I was like, what's the deal? We shouldn't have this anyway. I got pulled over one night, had a warrant out for my arrest I didn't know about. I had a ticket that was dropped, but a payment warrant, didn't pay it. Well, I didn't think anything about it. I had to pay court costs on something that was dropped. I mean, why is the government taking this kind of money?
Yeah, exactly.
So with the Libertarian Party, how long has the Libertarian Party been around? I mean, we hear about it all the time, but it just seems like they've never made really any advances so far, and it looks like that party would have.
Yeah, well, we run into the problem where we have the two main parties. You have your Republicans and your Democrats, and every time a Libertarian or independent or whoever gets on there, the excuse is always, "Oh, you're just taking votes away from X, either Republicans or Democrats." And so, because
that's not true.
It's not. A lot of my friends and family, every time they're like, "Oh, I'd vote Libertarian. I like what they have to say, but I'm not going to waste my vote." And it's like, do you have any idea how many people are out there who think like that? If everybody who thought like that actually voted Libertarians, we would have Libertarian candidates across the board. Like, we would actually have a completely different political structure in this country. But it's because people are scared to step out of the comfort zone and quote unquote not waste their vote. Yeah, and it's honestly it's just aggravating to me.
One thing that I forgot who. I think it may have been when I voted for Representative Paul in 2012, or I don't think it was a general election. Could have been a general election that I voted for. But anyway, I voted for somebody. I think it was Paul, and somebody said, "You wasted your vote," and I said, "No, I didn't." And they said, "Yeah, you did. You wasted your vote." I said, "No, I didn't." And they said, "How do you figure?" I said, "My vote was counted. It wasn't wasted. You only waste your vote when you do not go to the polls. As long as you vote, your vote is not wasted."
Absolutely.
And and I just always it's driven me crazy with that. Because every time I listen to the Libertarian Party and their stances, it's like, wow, because it's almost like you've went so far to the left, you've came back to the right, so to speak, because they're so liberal on some things and so conservative on the other.
Yeah, we have. Now we are guilty of having some pretty extreme people speaking about pretty normal policies. So that does hurt us sometimes. It can.
Well, the most brilliant person who I still say to this day, the most brilliant person I've ever heard speak, and I listen to him every time during the debates. How he didn't get more votes, I won't know, is Representative Ron Paul. I mean, that was the most brilliant man I've ever heard in my life when he spoke about government.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he's great. I mean, he was just at the Libertarian National Convention in Vegas this past weekend, and he's still, Dr. Paul is still the coolest man on campus when he walks. I mean, everybody loves him.
I mean, and every time I would hear a question, I was like, man, let's see what you got here. And he would answer the question, and I'm just flabbergasted. I'm like, oh, wow. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Now, I don't think I like Rand, but Rand's not Dr. Paul.
No, that's very true. Yeah. Dr. Paul had a way of telling the truth when all the other politicians told you what you wanted to hear.
Well, and not only that, it was the way he said it too, to use a good country saying, he got it down there where the goats could get at it.
Exactly. The simple man, common man, somebody like me could understand what he was talking about.
And the one thing, the Libertarian Party, as far as which I loved when Dr. Paul did this during the invasion of Iraq back in 2003. Dr. Paul submitted a declaration of war against Iraq. He said, if we're going to war, Congress has to be the one to authorize it. So let's vote if we're going to war or not. And I thought that was brilliant. What is the Libertarian principle stance on when to use the military and, when just to stay at home?
Essentially, it's if we're not involved with it from the get-go, like if we're not attacked, then, it's that we are we're not necessarily throw up a border, make America an island and just leave the rest of the world alone. But, when like right now, the Russia-Ukraine, that's a war between two countries that's been there forever. Those areas have been at war, battling each other for God knows how long. And there's really no need for us to get involved. There's no reason we should get involved. Same thing with the war in Iraq. Same thing with the war in Afghanistan. It was a couple of Saudi Arabians who attacked us, but yet we invade Iraq and Afghanistan.
I agree with you totally. I've been saying that about Russia and Ukraine for, since it started. I said, why are we getting involved with that with a nuclear nation? What if this was going on between us and Mexico? Would you want Russia involved? With Iraq, I can remember when the first salvos was fired that night. I'm sitting there thinking, why are we going to war with these people? I mean, what did they do that we're sending 150,000 ground troops over there to invade them? Oh, Saddam was mean to his people. Okay, so are we going to start picking and choosing which countries we're going to war with because they have a dictator that's does something, ruthless to their people? We're only going to war with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, why aren't we at war with ourselves? I mean, we have a vice president who put removed countless of black fathers from their families and threw them in prison for doing the same thing she bragged about smoking in college. She bragged about smoking marijuana in college, but yet she wrote the bill in California that put thousands upon thousands of essentially black men, removed them, ripped them from their families, and threw them in jail for the same drug that she laughed about partaking into. I mean, the hypocrisy and evil in that is just absolutely asinine.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. That made me so angry when I seen her laughing about that.
Yes.
The blackmail she threw. It's essentially, the Clinton crime bill. What he did was just atrocious to black families in the 90s. I mean, just it was appalling. I don't want to start on that. But I mean, those crime bills right there, and they usually are, written to affect mostly black men or minorities.
Yeah, absolutely. We're still targeting a certain, demographic of American citizens in this country, and honestly, it's sickening.
I mean,
they're creating a problem so they can pretend like they can solve it. That's all they're doing.
I don't see. If you said it a few months ago when Senator Scott from South Carolina was pulled over and had 3 or 4 cars show up to see, why are you pulling over a United States senator? The lieutenant leaving the Pentagon gets pulled over, gets maced by 2 cops. How do you do a officer that works at the Pentagon? I mean, it's appalling. That stuff like that is going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now, what would the Libertarian? This past year, we took in $3 trillion in revenue and taxes. We spent out $3 trillion in entitlement programs, and people say it's not entitlement program. It's not entitlement. I paid into it. No, you paid a portion into it. Okay, I think with Social Security, you paid 25% in. The rest was government employees and the wealthy because they don't get it. We paid out we had a $6 trillion deficit, so that was a wash. So we just lost $6 trillion. How do we stop this? What do we do? Because we just can't. We're going to be, as Mr. Paul said, we're going to be like Rome and be bankrupt for too much longer.
No, we're already bankrupt. We're bankrupt 3 times over. But yeah, no, you're right. We do not have a funding problem. We have a spending problem in this country, both at the state and at the federal levels. We're spending. We just spent $40 billion to Ukraine to give their citizens weapons, quote unquote, weapons of war, while simultaneously a certain party in this country is turning around and saying American citizens don't deserve quote unquote weapons of war to keep themselves and their family safe. Like the hypocrisy in that is just mind boggling. Like it hurts my
Oh, I
brain to
love how you
think
said that.
we are that stupid in this country to allow that to happen.
I love how you just said that. I mean, because I never even thought about that until you just said it. That how the liberals don't want us to have weapons. They turn around and give them $40 billion worth of arms.
Yeah, I mean say every country we quote unquote go to war with, that's what we do. I mean, Iraq and Afghanistan right now, all of the Taliban soldiers are fighting against they were fighting against American soldiers with American weaponry. We gave it to them.
Oh yes, I
And they
started
turned around
back in
and
the
used it
'80s.
against us.
Was
Yeah, well, against the Russians.
when,
You had Al Qaeda. Al
yeah, we
Qaeda
gave them
fighting
with the
against the
Russians.
Soviet Union, and we gave them all those weapons. We trained them in guerrilla warfare tactics, and then turn around and they
Yes,
use those same guerrilla warfare tactics against us. I mean, it's just
because I made the mistake when I was talking about Iraq, and everybody's all for it because of Iraq war. I was talking about the terrorists, the insurgents, and I made this statement right here. I said, one man's sailors, another man's explorers. I said, what you call terrorists, they call freedom fighters.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
He looked at me with the strangest look on his face, and I was like, what if you had Chinese troops down here fighting? How would they be labeled in China, and how would they be labeled here? I mean, we're in their country, kicking in their doors. For what? We still haven't found no weapons of mass destruction. They had nothing to do with 9/11. I mean, that's another thing. I'm sorry to get off kilter there. Back to the budget thing. One thing that I was looking at the other day, I'm sure you're familiar with the Ryan-White Act. And when the Ryan-White Act was created, first President Bush signed it, and it was for palliative care, because I'm sure you may be able enough to remember when someone got an AIDS diagnosis, they was dead within 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and it was for palliative care. I was looking at something the other day. If somebody becomes HIV positive now, they got these drugs where they live forever, but the drugs are paid for. All medical is paid for. Dental's paid for. They can go to school for free. Now they have a thing called a housing program where they pay their house. They're paying for everything for this. I mean, it was not meant to be this way. The same thing with Social Security. It was meant to pay for some old widow women who, never worked. Now we got people living to be 90 and 100. These are the greatest Ponzi schemes ever created.
Oh, absolutely. I wish I could vote I could go into the Social Security office and say, hey, keep the money you've already stolen from me over the past 20 years of my life that I've worked. I'm going to sign something right here. You don't take another dime from me as long as I work, and I promise I won't receive a cent of Social Security. I'd sign that today because it's an absolute waste. They're stealing money. It's theft. It's a second level of theft. And you're right. The welfare system in this country is just abused and abused so much that it's painful to think about it. I mean, that's the only thing I can say about how the government is run.
I've said that too, that I would opt out. I mean, at my age now, I'm almost to the point that it wouldn't be beneficial, but I said, people under 30, 35, they should be able to opt out of Social Security. And if they want to put it in a retirement program and retire with it, fine. If they want to stick it in their back pocket and go buy lottery tickets, they should be able to do with it. Like you just said, taxation is legal theft.
Yeah. But now at the same point, though, they have to realize that if they don't invest it, if they don't do something for retirement, when they do hit that age of 70, 67, 70, 80 years old, and they stop working because they think they can retire, if they don't have retirement, they are screwed and the government won't be there to help them. Like we need to set boundaries and because again, personal freedom is personal responsibility. So that's one thing we need to start, instituting in our society is responsibility for your choices. Like right now, the government, Biden wants to pay off everybody's, college education and their student loans.
Oh God, don't get me started.
It's like I know, like
I get so enraged.
You have a college degree now. You should be smarter than me. Why do I have to pay for your loans? Like nobody's paying for my house loan or my car loan. I mean,
that's you're preaching to the choir.
The reason
my house, like I said, I pay for my car.
And the
And
problem,
here's
see, the
what I
problem
love.
is,
It's not
again, the
all.
government is creating a quote unquote solution for a problem they created. The whole reason that college is so expensive these days is because the government stepped in 30 years ago and was like, hey, we're going to back these loans. So for these little 18-year-olds who, don't never worked a job in their life, don't have any credit, they can't get a real loan, we're going to back it for them, which means the colleges go,
Same thing
hey,
with Medicare.
yeah, if the government's going to back these loans, we'll crank up our prices because the government's going to promise to pay them off anyway. So we'll never go bankrupt. So there we
That,
go.
that,
That's why it's so,
that is the same. Yeah.
yeah, that's
I
why,
mean, they do that with
underwater
Medicare
basket
too. I
weaving,
mean, that's why the hospitals are costing everything. It's because of Medicare, and
yeah,
you just hit it with that right there. And what's driving me nuts? That, I mean, makes me just, I mean, want to chew nails. Is when I hear one of these kids say student loan forgiveness. This is not forgiveness. This is wiping away your debt. And look, all this stuff about we're going to give you college, we're going to give you medical care, we're going to give you this, we're going to give you that. They don't make free money. Okay.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I would almost be okay with, government funded college education where, the government would pay for your education if the people, we quote unquote, we would get to choose what education you get. Because if you come to me and you want to borrow, like if my son wants to borrow money from me, it's still my money. I'm allowing him to use it, but I get to set the rules and standards. So if my son wants daddy to pay for his college, I get to choose the college degree program he's going to go into. And if he fails out, he has to pay me back. And if he changes degree programs, he has to pay for his own program and he's going to pay me back the money that he took from me. I mean, because if we need it,
And I heard
and
another one.
we base it off of the economy. So if we need engineers for the next 10 years, we will pay for engineering programs. But for some wild
Hmm.
reason, if we need
Okay.
underwater basket weaving professionals, we'll pay for it then. But if we don't need that kind of program, we're not going to pay for it. It's simple as that.
I heard somebody say something that, and I could probably go along with this right here too. They said for everybody that somebody wants to go to college, for everybody that goes and which we have it, if you go serve 4 years in the Army or you go serve 4 years as whatever type of community service that you get trained with, if you go serve 4 years, then the government would turn around and pay for that. Okay, if you gave 4 years to the government to do right things like that, I could go along with that.
I mean, that's
I mean,
currently
that's
how
the
it works
easiest
now.
way. I mean, it drives me crazy when I hear these people, well, college is so expensive. Hey, go join the Army or go join the Navy, Marines, go give them 6 years or whatever it is, 4 years by four now, or 8 years of your life. You'll go to college.
That's how I paid for my college, the GI Bill.
I mean, they're giving when I was, and I don't know what it is now, but I mean, I remember sometimes active duty was like $250,000 or something like that.
Yeah, so when I joined, the Navy College Fund is what they were calling it, was up to $400,000. You don't
Okay,
really
four
actually
hundred thousand
get that
dollars.
much. Yeah, but I mean, there's that's the big number they put out there. But generally, yeah, I mean, I paid a lot of my college through my using my GI Bill. I mean, it paid for housing, my books, schooling. I mean, it paid for a lot of stuff while I was going to college. So it was a great program, and I used every penny of it. I loved it.
But here's something else that they don't talk about either. That I got. The government will give you Pell Grants. They'll give you free
Yeah,
money.
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
you can't. There's no raise. I mean, and there's places that will, like, not besides the Army. I mean, other jobs. I mean, people may not realize it, but yeah, there is tuition reimbursement for places like at McDonald's, at Burger
Hmm.
King. There's
Yeah,
places that will help you go to school. Don't say
Walmart.
that college is not affordable today.
Absolutely. I will say there is one flaw with the Pell Grant because I used Pell Grants before, and it's financially based. So it looks at your family, how much they're making, all that stuff, and you get a stipend, you get a grant, you get X amount of dollars. The flaw that I see is they will pay you more than what your college is costing. So if you qualify for the max amount of semester wise Pell Grant money, and you're going like me, I was going to a community college, and there was times where the entire tuition was paid for, my books were paid for the semester, and in the middle of the semester, I would get another big fat check of the leftover money. Uh, at first,
You
it's like
know,
cool extra money. Problem I had with that when I got thinking about that was there's that's a college is paid for. The grant is for college. why they're giving me more money than I need to pay. This money
gotta
should be going
admit that
back into the program and pay for another student to go to college. But again,
I
that's
gotta
just
admit that I'm guilty of that, because when I was getting my GI Bill, student loans, and both my parents were disabled, didn't work, so I was getting a Pell Grant, so I didn't work, just went to school.
hmm
So I
I'm
mean,
guilty
yeah, I
of it.
was guilty of that. I mean, there are flaws that have to be worked out. So let's move on to another topic, which I'd like to ask you about, and it's a topic that's dear to everybody. It seems like it's been going on ever since Harry Truman first wanted universal health care, and we still haven't answered. What's the answer to health care, man? Because people ask me, and I'll just tell them I don't know.
Yeah. I will not claim to be an expert on how to pay for healthcare. I will say that I grew up. My father is retired Navy. My entire life, I was a Navy brat, Navy active duty Navy, whatever it was. The day I was born, Navy kid. The day my dad retired on a Friday, we had a big party for him Saturday, and I left for boot camp Sunday. So like until
Oh
I was
wow,
21, 20, and we did not plan it that way. It just happened. But until I was like 22 years old, my entire life was military, which means I had TRICARE, which is government funded
yep,
healthcare, single payer government funded
right.
healthcare. Did it pay for a lot of stuff? Absolutely. Is it a hassle and a half and a son of a bitch to work with? Absolutely. And just look at the way the VA system is working for our soldiers, our troops. We have men and women who are literally committing suicide in the VA parking lot because they are not getting the
Yes,
help that they need. And
and
that's just
I'm
for a
lucky that where I'm
portion
at,
of America.
I'm sorry,
That's just for a tiny little
I'm lucky.
portion of our citizens. And people think that this system, because that's government run healthcare, that this system will work perfectly for en masse personnel. And it won't. It's just the dumbest
Right.
thing in the world. Because again, that's quality healthcare for a right price. I mean, because yeah, it's a
I
tough.
mean, I wish I knew the answer. Yeah, because I was talking to a friend, and and some of my Republican friends, it's like they want to toe the line and everything. Because this guy was talking about a Republican who was running for an office, and he said, he wants everybody to have health care. And I said, there's nothing wrong with everybody having health care. Now, I don't want the government stepping in because they're going to screw everything up, but I'm not against everybody having health care. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with people having health care. I don't want, the government's going to screw it up, like they do everything else. But I don't think any American is out there against everybody having health care.
Yeah, we need to cut our budget and other portions to use that money to help fund healthcare. If that's how they want to do it, we
Oh,
need
no
to,
question.
rearrange we got to stop paying millions of dollars to research gay starfish and put that money toward healthcare. That's essentially what we need to do.
I wished that I could just go in there and sit down and look at our budget. And I don't know how I could. I don't know what I would do. But I would love to sit down there and listen to it. I know you're too young to remember. But,
Thank you.
YouTube some of the Ross Pro infomercials when he
Oh
was running for
yeah.
president. He took out these 30-minute or hour-minute infomercials. He had it down to a penny
Yes, he knew every
where the
cent
budget
where it
was
was
being
going.
spent. Yes, he had it down to the exact penny, and I thought that man, he needs to be president. I
Yes,
mean,
absolutely.
look, I love Trump, but just because Trump was Trump, but we need a man like that, a businessman. He was driving like a '76 Toyota or something like that when he was running for president in '96. This man's worth billions of dollars, and that's why he had it. But that's the type of person we need up there. Look at this budget, and rip it to shreds, and say, no, come back. When we're not like the first stimulus check that we gave out under COVID, we gave more money to British and English citizens than we gave to our own people.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And we're doing that today. We're sending. We're supposedly about to have a war with China, or they're our enemy. We're fighting, tariffs with them and all this crap. We are sending billions of dollars of aid money to China every year, and at the same time, we borrowed money from China that we owe. But yet they're not crediting the money we're sending in aid funds to China. They don't credit it on the bill we owe them. So it's
You know,
you talk about Ponzi scheme. That's a horrible situation that we put ourselves in, and the fact that we allow that to happen, because we the people have the power, and we just sit back on our
yeah.
laurels and just let our our officials do whatever they want, and we just sit back going, well, man, really wish we could do something about that. But they don't understand. Like, people need to wake up and realize that our public servants are just that. They are servant. They are not lead. I am not trying to run for senator to be a leader. I am a representative of my community, of my district. Whatever they want is what I will fight for. Whether it's what I want or not, I represent my people. And so that's my plan, is to be with them,
I
to talk
love
with them, to figure out what it is they want, and I'll represent them in the state house, the state senate.
I love that answer right there. That was a great one. I love the and I'll post it every so often. When when oh my god, I'm drawing like when tyranny becomes oh god, when tyranny becomes something, then resistance becomes duty.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about, when Jefferson said it. I think Jefferson said it when tyranny. So I'm drawing a blank. I'd like to point out one thing. We're talking about spending stuff out. I do not understand why our government is giving aid to every foreign country. I remember when Bush gave $5 billion to fight AIDS in Africa, and I'm like, hey, you've got AIDS patients here. Why are we not giving that money? But and I'll send you some quotes from him because he's so polarized now. There's a racist, this person, but I was on a podcast a while back. It's called Chris Speaks Tells America the Unknown Story of George Wallace. And so then I told the unknown story, but then there was a clip of him, and it was in '68, I believe. And he said, why, basically, just to paraphrase it, he was saying, why are we paying NATO to use our weapons to defend them? They should be paying us. And I was like,
exactly.
Yeah, that sounds right.
When has you're 100% right. Because everybody, American politicians especially, love to look at this country and how they're doing things, and how could we're the only first world nation in the world that can't afford or can't work our own healthcare system, and this and that, and we're spending all this billions of trillions of dollars on our federal, our military, and our federal government and whatnot. It's like, well, yeah, it's because these other countries can afford nice things because we are paying for their defense. It's our soldiers and our sailors in their country.
Like Germany $40 billion. What are we giving Germany $40 billion for?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, give Alabama $20 million. I mean, it just, I would love to get in there and see, just what's going on in that budget. And what we're talking a while ago, I hate to go back on this taxes. When you go back, people do not realize the Democrats have done a great job of talking about the evil wealthy class and all the taxes they pay. They don't realize that the top 1% equals out to about right under 1 million people. About 0.35% is what's in that top 1%. Mm-hmm. So if you tax them another 5%, 2%, that's pennies on the dollar on what the deficit would be. They've made 20% of the income, but paid 40% of the taxes. That's not counting the property taxes, the luxury tax, their car taxes. These people are probably paying out 70% of their income. And I try to tell you, it's not wrong. There's nothing wrong with being wealthy.
Absolutely. I wish I was more wealthy than I am.
I wish I was too, but the Democrats have got it made out to be thing that there's this super wealthy class out there of millions and millions of. There's just a handful of people out there, and if you get rid of them, who's going to pay for the businesses? Who's going to make a business?
Yeah, precisely.
So another question I have for you: what is the Libertarian take on a minimum wage? We haven't had a minimum wage increase in 15 years. Obviously, our economy, you could see, couldn't stand all the stimulus checks, but should the minimum wage be raised some?
So the Libertarian Party's mentality on this is that is a discussion between employer and employee. The government should not be mandating wage restrictions, whether the minimum, maximum, whatever. So that is if I have $0, I don't have a job. I have $0, and I walk into Fred's hardware store, and old man Fred is like, "Look, I don't have much work to do. I can't afford to pay you $15 an hour, but I can afford to pay you $3 an hour." Well, $3 an hour is more than $0 an hour, and it's my choice whether I take that $3 an hour or I go down the street and try to find a better job. So
Right.
now I take it, and now I have $3 an hour. It still sucks, but it's money. But how it's working is when the federal government comes in and says, "No, you must pay this man $15 an hour." Well, then old man Fred's like, "I can't afford to pay that. You're fired." So now I'm back down to $0 an hour. So
Yeah.
yeah, it
During the
doesn't
pandemic, I
work.
knew people, during the pandemic, well, I knew people who were making, they had, decent paying jobs at $15 an hour. Well, they get laid off in between, during the pandemic and between the unemployment through the government, federal and state, they were making like $25. They didn't want to go back to work. I wouldn't
Exactly. I
either.
wouldn't either. They're making more money not working than they were when they were working. Yeah, the problem is we're
Um,
wasting our tax dollars paying them instead of using that money to actually do good for the country. And people like
so
me are paying for it.
a question after we, or a couple more. We're talking about, healthcare and taking care of people. So what about a child that's born that is basically in a vegetative state that can't do for itself, or somebody who's real old and firm? I mean, do we think the government should help out with that, or is that something that we should leave up to charities, or what's the libertarian take on that?
Again, libertarian party's take is less government, less government control, less government overreach, um, just less government in general. So yeah, that seems like to be a decision between family and doctors. And yeah, again, it's expensive. Unfortunately, that's just that the technology used to keep people in a vegetative state alive. That wasn't cheap to develop. I work in research and development, so I see
Well,
just how much.
maybe not a vegetative state, but I mean, where they're just mentally and physically
Mhm.
incapacitated. I mean, that they're breathing on their own and stuff. I mean, I've seen people, that they just pushed around in a wheelchair. I mean, I hate to put it like this, but essentially they're dead. They don't know what's going on in the world. I mean, do you think that maybe we've reached a point that euthanasia should be legalized? I mean, personally, I do.
Again,
Well, and I know
that's a
that's a
very
tough question.
yeah.
I'm probably putting you hard on the
Yeah,
spot.
no,
If you
no,
don't want to answer it, I understand.
it's a good question. I mean, it really is because yeah, you have to think of things like that. And again, I don't know that person. I don't know the family, the struggles they had to deal with, and
Right.
whatnot. So that's honestly, I do believe that it would have to be based on the
But do you think the family should
familial
have the
decision.
right if they
Yeah, they
said,
should have that right. I
you
do
think,
believe they should have that right.
okay, okay. I guess that's what I was asking. Not should, hey, should we go put this person to death, but should the family have the right to say, hey, we should terminate the life at this point?
Mhm.
Now, so that brings me to the next question, which is all in the news right now. Abortion. Um, should abortion be legal? I mean, at some point, should the fetus have rights? I mean, if the child can live outside the womb, um, or we're at a point there. I mean, to me, that who has president there, the mother or the child? I mean, now
Yeah.
obviously, if the mother's life was in danger, I would always adhere to let's save the mother's life. But if you got a woman that's 7 months pregnant, child coming out of the womb, should abortion still be legal then? Is that or how's the libertarians look at that?
So this is where I actually differ with the Libertarian Party, to an extent. So generally speaking, Libertarian Party, they're very pro-choice. So that is
Yeah.
the decision for abortion is whatever the mother wants, mother gets. I am slightly different, because I see it not on a religious standpoint, but just on a scientific standpoint. I see that fetus as a human. It has human DNA. It
Right.
has a heart, has its own heartbeat.
Right.
It has its own unique DNA. That is a child being developed in the womb of her mother.
Right.
So when it comes to currently Alabama's they have a bill. I believe the bill just either got held up or suspended or whatnot. But I would vote against it because they're essentially making abortion illegal for any reason, and I do not agree with. It should be, rape, incest. If it's going to harm the mother or baby, like if there's,
Right.
if the doctor's like, look, you're having a very difficult pregnancy, whether it be an ectopic pregnancy or whatnot, that there is a very, very significant risk that the mother could die during this pregnancy. That is when the mother gets to choose.
What's
Because
the child is going to be born without a brain?
Yeah, exactly. Things of that nature. Because again, here in this country, we have a right to self-defense. It might be a silly way of looking at it, but if this baby is going to kill the mother, that's technically the mother has the right to self-defense.
Right.
If she chooses to abort the baby to protect herself, 100% within her right. If she chooses to take that risk and attempt to give birth to this baby anyway, 100% her right to do so. But same with
I
rape.
respect your opinion. I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah,
Oh,
I respect your opinion on that, as opposed to a lot of people. Me personally, I am pro-life, but and I think that with the decision, I think that that it should evolve as science has evolved. Once it gets to a point that, like you just said, it was a living fetus, it has a heartbeat, its personality has developed, it has taste, that's a human being at that point. I'm totally against abortion unless it's going to endanger the mother's life, or they say, hey, the baby's fine, but it has no brain. I can see that. But once it's become a child and you're to that point, then no, I'm against any that let's call it what it is. I mean, at that point, you're murdering the child.
No, and I, on a personal standpoint, I 100% agree with you. So this is where the hypocrisy of society gets to me, is from a legal standpoint, because I can't be a hypocrite and say I am pro-life, so I'm going to vote pro-life, while saying that I'm a libertarian, and I just went on this platitude about how we're all about less government intervention. Well, then here I am, making laws demanding what a mother can and can't do. However, right. I agree with you. It is a life. I just wish and make it a fact that, let the mother understand that is a human baby. And if you're aborting a human baby, it's not just a fetus. It's not just a clump of cells. I mean, think this through. You are here, generally speaking, not because of rape or incest, but generally speaking, you had sex, you got pregnant, and not just you. There's a father involved with this too. So you too had sex, exactly. You too got pregnant. This is your responsibility. And by terminating this pregnancy, you're just doing away with your personal responsibility. Long as I think we should make them recognize that and understand what it is that they're doing. And if they still want to go through with it, then there they go. That's on them. But on a personal standpoint, I am pro-life.
I'm sorry, I think the father should definitely have some rights in that. I seen somebody with a name just to show how lack of, I guess, intelligence they have. It said something about if we're going to regulate abortion, we should regulate. He's making some reference about abortion and men not having any responsibilities after it. Like, I forgot how it said, but then I typed back in. They do. It's called child support. When they left that.
Yeah, and so there's men.
I had an interview with a constitutional law. I'm sorry, what was that? I had an interview with a constitutional lawyer that night, and he's really great. I mean, I love the interviews we have because he should have taught law school. He was a criminal defense attorney, but we had a discussion on the what was the young man's name? Ahmaud Arbery, that was murdered in Georgia.
Oh yeah, Aubrey.
Yes. So anyway, and so the other night we did Roe v. Wade. Now, we don't go in there saying anybody's guilty or innocent. He analyzes the case as a judge would be looking at it, as the lawyers, what's going through the defense, what's going through the prosecution. And it's just brilliant to listen to him analyze these cases. And he did Roe v. Wade the other night, and he went through and just analyzed the case. And he's not giving any opinion on it was right, it was wrong. He's just saying, this is what the judges was looking at. This is what the law was based on. And it's really phenomenal. I mean, I think you should subscribe to the channel. Check some of them out sometimes. He's really good. It's got I call it the time of Larry the Lawyer. And I think the next one we're going to do is the Kyle Rittenhouse case.
Okay. Oh, that's a fun case.
Yeah. And when I cut tape, we'll talk about that one for a second if you got a minute. I think I've covered everything that I have as far as libertarian. principles. Oh yeah, one of the questions. What does how would the libertarians feel about death penalty?
They're against the death penalty. Because
Really?
you can't in one breath say, we hold these truths to be self-evident that every citizen has a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and then turn around and say the government has the right to kill you because you've been bad. So they are against the death penalty. Personally, me, not so much.
Well, I used to be like that too. I used to be pro death penalty, and I still believe there's probably some crimes that are so heinous that they just deserve it. But I got to think about it. What's worse, getting the death penalty after a couple of years, or sitting in prison for 60 years behind bars looking out a window? I mean, so I'm torn on it. But I have no problem with the death penalty off if it's given out. But I think that right there might be a rough torture. Kyle, is there anything else you'd like to add, man? That you want the voters to know? Because you got a few months and start hitting that trail.
Yeah, just I guess, like I said, I'm Kyle Richard Garrison. I am going for District 6 as the state senator of District 6, which is the generally the northwestern portion of Alabama. And like I said, I'm here to be a public servant. I will serve my people. And like I said, my tagline is essentially, I'm going down to Montgomery. I'm going to become a senator to leave you people alone. That's essentially what it's going to do. I have no intention of making any rules or laws that's going to mandate what you can and can't do. I'm going to do what I can to remove restrictions, pro-business, and I'm just going to do what I can do. Have fun with it. So I do have some social media accounts. Just look for Kyle for Alabama State. Say that again. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I cut you off. What did you say?
Well, yeah, so I was going to check me out on Facebook and Twitter. Currently, right now, I'm going to be adding to this as I go. I'm just bare bones right now. I'm just starting out. But for Facebook, it's Kyle Richard Garrison for AL State. And for Twitter, it's Kyle for AL State. So look me up, find me, follow me. If you have comments, questions, throw them out there. We'll have a discussion. We can discuss. We can argue. We can troll each other. We're going to have fun with this.
I'll make sure that I put that in the YouTube section there where they can find you for your website and
awesome.
Twitter account.
Cool.
Thank you. Have an Instagram account too, or is it just
not
Facebook
yet? Yeah, not yet. Just those two for right now.
Well, good luck, my man, and I wish you the best.
All righty. Well, thank you, sir.